Well, this is All Out Politics, news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. In the last few minutes, the European Union has agreed that UK citizens travelling to the Schengen area for 90 days or less won't require a visa after Brexit. Well, for more on what's going on in Europe and how they're responding to Britain's plans, we can speak now to Luc van Middelaar. He's a political analyst and former chief speechwriter and advisor to the last European Council President, Herman van Rompuy. He joins us from The Hague in Holland, and here with me in the studio are the French-Algerian journalist Nabila Ramdani and Nina Trentman, news editor of the Wall Street Journal in London, and former UK business correspondent for Die Welt, the German newspaper. Welcome to you all. Where do you think things are heading, Nina Trentman?
Difficult to tell. I have the impression that we've been discussing this question so often, and over the course of time it looked as if it was going one way or the other. I find it very hard to tell what's going on at the moment because, of course, from the European side we have seen lots of comments saying no renegotiation and this is it, and we can assure Britain more with regards to the Irish backstop, but that's about it. And I've also heard that from the German position, even though, of course, Mrs. Merkel is watching this quite closely, that there's not going to be a high-profile intervention at this late stage, given that we're only a couple more days.
I thought the Germans were saying she'd leave it right until the very last moment, sort of in March sometime.
Well, possibly, but maybe not now. It's very, very difficult to say, I guess, at this time, given also that, of course, you don't want to be seen as Germany or some other leading member of the European Union to be intervening in this, in the end, domestic decision that the UK is taking of how to exit the European Union.
And Luc van Middelaar, what should we make of these messages coming out today from the EU 27? Calling Gibraltar a colony, which annoys the British government, and also talking about travel arrangements in the event of no deal. Does that mean that's what they're doing now, expecting no deal?
No, I don't think there's yet expectations of a no deal, but I think people realize that the chances for a no deal are higher than they were. I think, as was said before, there's still, of course, a sense of unity among the EU 27, no renegotiation of the withdrawal agreement, and unity with a view to Ireland as well. But there is no immediate movement there. So I think what people are waiting for is perhaps for a delay as the most reasonable outcome at this stage to avoid a crash which nobody wants. And they will wait out first. On Theresa May, that's my impression. They will not call an emergency summit somehow in the next 2 weeks before the next vote to deal with it. They will, that is Brussels, the Brussels presidents, Juncker and Tusk will no doubt listen to Theresa May, to what she proposes as new alternative arrangements, but they will not call a full-blown summit with Merkel and Macron and all the others to look at this only if they have a clearer idea of what the UK really wants. And the impression as Brussels is that the UK still has not solved the internal contradictions of its position, as was said also previously, basically having contradictory policies with regard to Brexit and the Good Friday Agreement and the integrity of the United Kingdom.
Does that mean, therefore, that France and along with Germany would sort of stand by and let Britain leave in 8 weeks' time with no deal?
Well, it has to be said that friends are in short supply for the British in Europe at the moment, and they would certainly struggle to find one in France. President Macron has said that he categorically refuses to renegotiate a withdrawal agreement, and he said that the EU had already given the best possible deal to Britain. And Macron's hatred for Brexit seems to grow more severe by every passing hour, and his language is becoming more hyperbolic as D-Day approaches, and he's used recently public meetings in France to particularly attack the 2016 Brexit referendum, saying that it had been manipulated by outside agents using fake news, that it promised fantasies, and it effectively split British society in two. And as we all know, Macron is in an awful lot of trouble at home, not least because of the Yellow Vest anti-government movement. And one of their demands is to hold a Brexit-style referendum on pretty much every political issue. And
he wants to avoid that, right?
He hates hates this in principle, and he uses the British case at any opportunity as a warning to where referendums.
So that means, in a sense, politically, he wants things to go badly.
I think, well, the French are generally considered inflexible negotiators at the best of times, and that certainly seems to be the case here. They are living up to their reputation, if you like, and Macron's most recent prediction is that the deadline for Britain leaving the EU will probably be extended past the European Parliament elections at the end of May and possibly beyond. And I can't see Mr. Macron giving anything on the backstop because it effectively boils down to preventing
He would go on for an extension?
I think so. That's his latest prediction. That's what he probably will go for, along with the other.
I mean, we've been reporting for a long time that the Dutch are well ahead of us in preparations for a no-deal Brexit, but also the argument is made that in the end, member states of the European Union, particularly those most closely involved with trade with the UK, such as the Netherlands, will want to avert the worst sort of crash. What do you think of that, Luke?
Well, I think it's right that some member states, perhaps the Netherlands and some others, will become a little bit more nervous earlier on because of trade issues. But fundamentally, and I agree with what Nabila just said, there is also politics playing for all EU leaders, including for Dutch Prime Minister Rutte. As for Macron, he also has a domestic opposition against the EU, and he too wants to show that the EU is a good thing to be a member of and to protect, let's say, the integrity of the European Union. And it strikes me in many of the UK position statements, also in the House of Commons, there's still this feeling that it's all about trade, also on the EU side. And it's not. It's fundamentally about the politics. It's about preserving the European Union. It's about fighting populists at home. See Macron, Merkel is very much trying to keep the EU 27 united. And they're also on the EU side, they're willing to pay a price for that in the case of a no deal, knowing, of course, that in relative terms, the economic costs on the side of the EU 27 are relatively far much lower than on the UK side. So there is no fear in that respect. And those in the UK who think that the EU will blink first because of trade issues, I'm afraid they're wrong.
Okay, and finally, Nina, I mean, the Wall Street Journal, to a certain extent, slightly detached from all this. It's not like a Fleet Street national newspaper fighting it out. Objectively, if I can put it that way, what do you think the economic consequences would be of a no-deal Brexit in 56 days' time?
Well, I assume, of course, you would have strong market reaction because, of course, this happens against the backdrop of already volatile markets at the end of last year and in the beginning of this year. So you would see the pound reacting, you would see the euro reacting, stock markets, and then, of course, you would see large amounts of, for example, German exporters to the UK, as well as some French companies, British companies, all having impacts because, of course, they're all relying on seamless flow of goods, producing...
And that would stop you? There wouldn't be seamless flow?
Well, there is, of course, last-minute contingency rules that the EU has passed and the UK has passed, but I guess there will be some sort of disruption. And I guess the core question is, how big will that be? And will it actually be that people are saying, OK, I can't buy a certain product from the European Union in a supermarket, or whether there's going to be any way of averting that? I'm curious to see how it goes.
You stockpiling?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
I know people who are. Thank you all very much indeed.